As the solo founder of a no-code app, you are going to come up against a number of obstacles, all of which can lead to burnout. Now, in helping hundreds of entrepreneurs go from idea to app, there are 5 specific things that I want you to avoid to make sure you can actually launch your app. Now, make sure you stick around until the end if you want to understand all 5 things to avoid instead of just some of them. So here's the deal. You have a job, maybe a business, a life, maybe a family. You have a lot of things vying for your time, but you have an app idea that you want to build and launch yourself versus outsourcing it so that you can have complete control over your project. Now, if you are a solo founder, that means you do have some work ahead of you. Now, it's completely doable. Like I said, we've helped hundreds of entrepreneurs do the same, many of them being solo founders, but there are some things you need to be aware of that could really send you off path and ultimately lead your app to kind of just fizzling out. One of the first problems that you could run into is really just the inability to wear multiple hats. Now, what I mean by this is, as a solo founder, there are a lot of different aspects of your app's development and of your business as a whole that you need to make sure you are focusing on, or that you are building skills around. So for example, you can't just be the visionary for your app and business. In other words, if you have a bigger picture vision for your app and your business, you know where you want to take it, you know what you want that business to look like, that's great. But you can't just play that role. You also have to play the integrator, where you put in the work in order to reach that bigger picture vision, and you are capable of kind of putting on your work boots and moving the needle forward in terms of progress. Now, on the flip side, you also can't just be the integrator. You can't just succeed by putting in more hours of work than anyone else if you can't also play the visionary. Because if you can't play the visionary role, then you'll be putting in a bunch of work, but with no specific direction in which you're taking your app. Now, another example of this is comparing marketing and development. You know, if you are approaching building your no-code app as a solo founder and you are happy to put in work toward the development side of things and to build skills around that, that's great. But if you're not willing to do the same with user outreach, then you're not going to have users on the other side, and vice versa. Now, in the beginning, it can be intimidating to think about wearing all of these hats because it definitely can lead to burnout. What you have to make sure you do is approach it strategically. You focus on the biggest priority at the right time. So you can't be the visionary, the integrator, the developer, the marketer all together all the time. You have to separate your development and your launch out into specific steps and play the role and learn the role at the right time. Now, on the other side, you can still be a solo founder or a solo business owner if you choose, but once your app picks up traction, you can also start to build out a team around you. Now, it can be a lean team, but you don't always have to move forward trying to juggle everything on your own. Okay, here's the next one. As a solo founder, you are going to be making some tough decisions. Now, I say they are tough decisions because you are likely doing a lot of new things that you've never done before. You may have never launched an app before. Maybe you've never built a skill set around any of these things before. And so when you make a lot of the decisions throughout those processes, they're going to be made without already having experience of having done the thing. So you can't be 100% confident in those decisions. Yes, you can get help, you can get coaching, you can get mentorship, but at the end of the day, as the solo founder, you are going to have to make those decisions. Now, the pitfall is when you can't make those decisions because you are so worried about the unknown, the what ifs that could come from making a decision. But here's the thing to understand. A lack of decision making is worse than making the wrong decision. Now, I say wrong with air quotes because there is no wrong decision. There is a decision, there is a better decision. Okay, the wrong decision is not making one at all. So even if you don't have full confidence in what you're doing because you don't yet have the experience of having gone through it, any decision is better than none because you can always pivot. All right, here's the third one I want you to be aware of. You are going to run into issues with your app if you are not looking for feedback from other people about your app. Now, at every point along your app development and launch process, from your idea stage through to the development and the launch phase and well beyond, if you are not getting feedback about everything that you are doing or thinking about doing from people other than yourself, you are going to burn out. Now, that can sound a little bit weird. How could that lead to burnout? But here's why. If you're not getting feedback about your app, then everything that you are doing is biased. Because if you're moving forward just based on what you think, well, chances are you're going to really like what you're doing. You're going to really support, your ideas for your app. And that means that you are going to keep building and building and building without ever launching, or with maybe just delaying your launch for far too long. And when you get into an unending development phase, that is going to lead to burnout because there is nothing gratifying coming out of it. There's no users coming on board. There's no revenue coming in. There's no business actually being grown. So you're going to run into burnout if you're not getting that feedback. Make sure you're seeking it out. All right, app saving lesson number 4 is this. The most successful app entrepreneurs do not find the time to build their apps. They make the time to build, launch, and grow their apps. It takes consistent work to do those things, to go through a development process, to go through a launch phase, and to start growing on the other side. This is not an overnight thing, and it's not something that's going to happen if you just spend, a couple hours every other weekend, right? So I understand that you have other priorities in your life, but if you are wanting to build, launch, and grow an app in a business that can completely, potentially change your lifestyle, then it's gonna take dedication. And so, you're busy, you have other things going on, and so if those things fill your calendar first, then your app is never going to fit in around them. Instead, you really need to be time blocking. Ideally, you need to have a development roadmap that is going to take you from idea to actually having that first version of your app. And ideally, you need to have specific time windows when you're focusing on different components of your app, different features of your app. And then you need to work backwards and figure out when during your day can you focus on those specific components and those specific features. And then you just need to make that a routine and really a rule. You are going to have to make the time, not find the time, if you want to avoid burnout. Because what can easily happen is if you want to do this, if you want to build and launch your app, but you never find the time, it's really easy to just start feeling defeated. All right, here's the last one, and this one might actually surprise you, but you are likely to run into burnout as a solo app founder if you don't sometimes step away from your app. Now, it can be really easy to get sucked into the development work and to the skill building, and to sometimes find yourself staring at the same problem or issue for potentially hours on end and feeling really frustrated by it. That can lead to burnout, especially if it happens frequently. But we've found that sometimes the best solution is to simply step away, switch your brain off from what you're doing, and focus on something completely different. Maybe go for a 10-minute walk, maybe listen to a podcast, or even just shift focus to a different aspect in your work, but something that's different from the problem you're working on. Chances are, when you come back, you'll be able to solve that problem. And chances are, if you had stepped away a lot earlier, you could probably solve it a lot sooner. So make sure you're stepping away and simply getting fresh eyes. You need to make this a consistent practice, and this also needs to be a rule for your app. If you're not doing it, you are going to burn out. Now, I mentioned we help entrepreneurs go from idea to app. And one of the things we aim to do is give them a plan, a process, a structure in going through that process so that they can avoid a lot of the things that we've already talked about. They can have more confidence in what they're doing. They can have a crystal clear direction for the steps that they're taking, and they can make decisions a lot more easily, but while still having control over their apps. Now, one of the very first steps they take in their app entrepreneurship journey is going through a free extended training over at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop. And if you want to move forward as a solo no-code app founder successfully and without burning out, then make sure you head to that training too. It's over at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop. We'll look forward to seeing you there.